and good afternoon, morning.
Still
We
morning.
were just talking about coffee talk in the morning in Clubhouse, and it's like all of a sudden I'm confused on time of day. Welcome to this edition of Hospitality Marketing, live show number 293. With me is the brain trust of all humanity. No. We have Miss Adele Gutman with AdeleGutman.com. Mr. Tim Peter, what? You look different. No. Mr. Dean Schmidt with Basecamp Meta, Meta Search Marketing, and Mr. Edward St. Ange with Flip2. We were just talking about Dean coming up as Tim Peter. I'm going to go check the links to make sure that technology hasn't overcome humanity and that it's trying to re-identify us as people and individuals. Oh, and Alan with us.
Only a matter of time.
Is with us in the chat room. Good morning, Mr. Allen. Actually, might as well just carry it a little bit quickly before we dive into anything super. We're just talking about Clubhouse.
Yes.
And by all means, Mr. Ed, go ahead. I'm going to go over and make sure that all the lights are on and the lights are dimmed and all that stuff.
I'm gonna start with when Clubhouse was explained to me. I thought it was the dumbest thing ever. I really did. I was not on the Clubhouse bandwagon, and Stuart and Lauren pressured me into it. And I got to be honest with you, there are a lot of good conversations happening specific to our industry on Clubhouse. The exchange of ideas that I have jumped in on and have been able to hear and the different points of view have been really, really good. Now, to a point Adele made offline, like anything else, there's a lot of not good, but I will say I've at least found 5 or 6 rooms that are frequent that I like trying to pop into and listen to, which to me is about 14 rooms more than I expected. Hey,
well, let's not be too optimistic, shall we?
I was not optimistic about Clubhouse, but the way our industry is using Clubhouse is really interesting. The other interesting aspect about Clubhouse is the amount of people in the hospitality industry, but not in lodging, that are interested in talking about lodging specific angles has been really interesting. And the points of views that I've been kind of getting from them, I actually find really valuable. So a lot of restaurant people, a lot of retail and food service that have really interesting thoughts on, the lodging side of things.
Speaking of Clubhouse and new to it, Tammy. Ta-da.
Yeah, Tammy, you joined Clubhouse? All right.
Yeah, Dan made me sign up on Tuesday. That's as far as I've gotten. So I signed up, and that's as far as I've gotten. So,
hey.
And Robert Cole, the only person who can't do Clubhouse.
Which is, I think, why Clubhouse isn't.
Who won't do Clubhouse? Exactly.
You mean can't.
Oh, we lost it. Well,
that angle you had, Robert, made it look like a ceiling fan was about to whack you in the head.
It is.
Yes, I'm very tall. I'm nearly 8 feet tall for people who haven't met me in person. So
that's right.
It's not an Android. I do have a Clubhouse account, but I don't borrow my wife's or my daughter's phones to use it. So
okay. Adele, you had a comment about it because you're relatively new to it as well.
Hey, so Tim's not able to get in because Dean's using his token.
Oh,
tell him to try using mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what here. I'm going to go back and make sure I actually gave the right tokens away. I guess I'm going to send over to Tim, general presenter token, just to get him in.
And he's getting the same error with Dean. So Lauren, the mistakes on your end, both Dean and Tim's token is the same.
Oh, okay. That's my bad.
Lauren duplicates the big reveal. Lauren duplicates tokens.
No. I duplicate your token, Robert. Which, by the way,
yes, you do.
If you use Robert's token, that one's good because that's a generic token.
So next week, everybody should just log in as Robert.
When Lauren was trying to ask me about, because I just didn't understand how it worked. Is there an etiquette or a protocol? Do you wait to be called on? Are you allowed to just comment on somebody else's comment. I'm still a little bit not sure, but I've been trying to be quiet just to watch the way other people do. And I noticed that in some rooms, people say, thanks, I'm Adele and I'm done now, or something like that, to make sure they know now somebody else can speak.
I never say I'm done.
We don't ever set up polite rooms.
I never say I'm done.
Yeah.
I go one more thing.
Yeah, right.
Me.
As Ed was pointing out earlier, I am impressed at the amount of conversations, industry-related conversations that are happening out there. Maybe a bit overwhelming. That is my one detraction. I feel like there's a little too much going on out there, because in the course of this live stream today, I'll have about 10 different notifications popping up about room or
you
whatever.
need to adjust your notifications.
Yeah, just shut it off.
I did.
Because
I did.
that's a huge flaw with the platform.
I got that hint from Tim. When I saw Tim's like, you want to let Tim know you're asking him to be a moderator, but he's not taking messages right now.
Well, I'm not kidding. I think I got on the first week, no joke, 40 notifications, 45 notifications.
Dude, that's an hour
per like literally per like every 2 hours.
Yeah.
It was nuts. So I just turned them off.
But I guess going to a little bit. Go ahead, Dean. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm excited though by the fact that these conversations are taking place. People are talking about this.
Oh yeah.
That to me is exciting.
I want to go back to something Adele mentioned, and the difference of mediums at this point. We're kind of getting comfortable to the visualization of knowing when somebody's trying to say something like, "Oh, go ahead, Adele. You're looking, you're trying to interrupt or something. Raise your hand or something." In the audio world, it really begins to show people that are used to, well, and this is credit to you, Tim, moderating. I still think you're the greatest moderator of a panel I've ever had seen on a conference, and that's no exaggeration. It's really, you're able to garner information, but people being left to their own wiles don't know the cues to shut up.
Hey, were you looking at me, Ed, when you said that?
I said that, yeah, because I'm the poster child of when you stop and talking, Lauren. When you stop and talking, Lauren.
Well, one thing would be nice is if you're already on the speaker section and you want to chime in and you want to alert, but you can't press the hand up anymore because you're already up there. And number two is there's no chat area.
No.
Chat would be really nice.
Yeah. And I would just like to say a little chat. I don't want to talk.
But I only think the chat should be amongst the speakers, because I think having chat would limit people's willingness to come up on stage.
Yeah. I'm actually
come up on stage.
I don't want a chat feature. I think.
Yeah, I'm with Stuart on that one. I'm with Stuart on that one.
The platform.
Yeah, I want to force them into if you're going to contribute dialogue, don't troll with the chat.
I will tell you, so, I know, Lauren, you run the noon Clubhouse Monday through Thursday, which I've enjoyed. I really prefer mine and Stuart's morning one, though. Because the conversation.
Lauren, you're doing great, but you suck.
But we took an approach. We decided to take an approach of, we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about, as long as it loosely relates to hospitality and maybe marketing. The conversations have been really interesting. I mean, they've gone to some really interesting places.
And I will tell you, there was one that happened the other day. One of the challenges I've had with it, I can't work with background talking. I find it distracting and things along those lines. So I can only do Clubhouse when I actually have the time to give it attention. And this isn't a knock, Lauren. This is just a statement. The last time that I was free at noon, because I often have meetings, I do a lot of working lunches with people and things like that, even on Zoom these days. But the couple times I've been free on noon, the specific topic of the show, I didn't feel like I added any value. So I didn't join because
Tim, come on.
Oh, no.
I mentioned you in this morning's chat.
I'm talking about the Lauren one with the set agenda.
Right. Yeah,
because it was about a specific topic that I'm like, that's not.
Dude, Tim, I'll be honest with you.
Stand there and look like an
your
idiot.
name. I'm just using your name like, oh, Tim might be there. That's all I'm doing. I don't really care if you show up. I don't, add what you want. But I'm just saying, look, dude, Tim might be here.
I thought I was. Okay? I assumed like in Google Ads that I was the negative keyword.
No, you're the positive humor. Please, nobody wants to listen to me, but maybe if Tim's there, maybe I'll show up.
Can I just point out we've reached a new level of egotism here? We're talking about ourselves, talking about hospitality. We're not even talking about hospitality.
We are so meta. We are so meta.
Like
Sorry,
Inception.
the black hole, the initiation of the black hole has begun.
Right.
We are self-fulfilling our self-fulfillment. Yeah. I guess
it's going to be even better when we're on Twitter Spaces talking about the Clubhouse show to talk about this show. That will be,
right.
It's an Ouroboros. It's just the snake eating its tail, right?
But it does add to a certain dialogue of the fact of the expediency of getting content out there. And to Adele's earlier point, there's a lot of junk out there. Matter of fact, that's what I mentioned when I was putting up the notes this week, is that there's a lot of white noise of self-proclaimed experts and a lot of conversations that people just don't know how to run. They're like, okay, we're going to have this conversation. And then it's just a diatribe. There's nothing there. But there are, as to Ed's point, great conversations. There's some, I wish it could be recorded conversations, because God, I would love to have taken that and used it for something. I remember
notes.
everything,
I keep notes because I actually have gotten some really good ideas off of conversations I've been in on.
Yeah. And Adele, some of the things with the microphone, it's not consistent, but pretty much you applaud with it. And or as a speaker, you turn it off longer than you flash it to let them know you want to talk.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the thing. So you stay muted when you're not talking, Adele, and then you
you always put mute on as soon as you're done talking.
And you do the quick to applaud.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah. And then the slow take it off and leave it off for a little bit lets me know if I'm running the room, you want to say something. That's where you usually hear me interrupt, say, oh, wait a minute, such your mic off,
Yeah, and if you see other people start to turn their mics on, it means you're talking too much. And I get that a lot.
Is that why everybody turns the mic on when I'm chatting?
You get that a lot, Stuart?
Surprisingly, I don't know why. Must be a coincidence.
Hey, Lauren, let me take this on as the novice of Clubhouse who joined, but that's as far as I've gotten. They're not recorded, right? So it's almost like that happenstance fear of missing out is the excitement of being there. So for people that are watching this that maybe either haven't joined Clubhouse or like me, Dan sent me the text with the app and said get on. That haven't done anything. You're saying there's a lot of white noise. How do people filter through? Okay, obviously there is Stuart and Ed's channel, and there's your ear channel. But how do people filter through the noise and find? Well, of course. But how do we filter through the noise and find the good?
Follow people that you find interesting.
Yes.
And when you log in, you can see what rooms they're in. And then you kind of have to be harsh. I'll pop in a room, listen real quick, and bounce. And
actually, if you take your conference mentality, it works perfectly. You're at a networking in a conference. You know certain people that are usually pretty good about what they're talking about, and you see what groups they're talking to. You go in. If it is something you like to listen to, cool, hang. If you don't, it's just like a conference. You just leave the back of the room quietly, like, hey, I like you, but you're not talking about anything I'm interested in. I'm just going to go to the next room. This isn't something I want to sit and take my time on. And that's kind of what happens with it, to Ed's point exactly. There's some really cool people that I followed into a room going, why are you here? Click.
And then join groups that you think are going to be on topic to what you care about. And there's a schedule where you can click a schedule, and groups are scheduling rooms ahead of time, telling you what the topic's going to be and stuff. And that'll actually tell you, like, do I want to go, if I want a topic, then I can hop on that topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now we have a club.
They're not called groups, they're called clubs.
We have a club called Hospitality Marketing Club. And if you ever want to make a room for it, just make a room for it. Just put it under because that helps overall the core content of it. That if you're really going to do something under hospitality or marketing, like Ed says, it's like just make a club for it. Or make a room for it under the club, and that way you keep in context to it, so people following our club would know that, hey, it's probably related to this.
By the way, Stuart, to our morning one next Wednesday, we're going to change it up a little bit, and it's going to be a DMO chat.
Okay.
So I'm going to schedule it that way. I'm going to see if a couple of the DMO folks I know want to come on it.
Yeah.
And it'll be, but same format. So hotels and everyone can come on and talk, but we're going to kind of do it through the lens of marketing a destination.
Okay.
You guys know that the entire country is in Eastern time, right?
I do 8 a.m. because I can do 8 a.m. like consistently. I don't book meetings that early. But consistently I can do 8 a.m. Noon is such a crapshoot for me on if someone's going to hop into my calendar, or something's going to blow up, or it may be the only chance I have to eat. But 8 a.m. is always good for me. So that's why I chose
So-
that.
Now,
Naturally,
5
I can do
a.m.
an 8 a.m. right
We
now.
get
you
a
don't
lot of-
like the,
8 a.m. right
we
now.
get
Ed
a lot
doesn't
of-
like people on the
It takes
West
a long
Coast.
time to look
mostly.
like this,
Right.
I don't have to worry about it when it's just audio.
we get a lot
right.
of European and Asian
Yeah.
participants at the 8 a.m. one, which has also been just kind of an interesting perspective.
Yeah, we get a lot of from ours on the daytime. We get a lot from Dubai and
Yeah.
EU.
Mhm.
Their end of the day kind of stuff. They're jumping in on it. But I welcome all of you to please put rooms together of stuff, because Adele, to your point, you could crush so many of these conversations I think are going to be interesting about reputation management and reputation monitoring and culture development. And it's just
There's a lot of those, yeah.
and it's just
Maybe I should make a room for that.
Yeah, and make a room for it and make it under the club so people know that it's related to the hospitality industry and so forth. Because I think some of the larger hospitality clubs were the default clubs that just happened to be the first ones that were allowed to build a club, and they're not really doing well. Because what I'd like to do eventually is all of our rooms refer to all the other rooms in the club. Like that's something that no clubs are doing right now. Is like, hey, if you like this at noon today, Lauren's doing his thing because he's a sad story compared to ours.
And that's what
which
we
is
do
cool.
every morning. We say, hey, if you want to
See?
get a more controlled topic at noon, Monday through Thursday, it's a controlled topic about one very specific thing, hop in type thing. And so, it's kind of creating that, cycle of promotion. Now, if we want to keep talking about Clubhouse, anyone have any thoughts on how a hotel could use Clubhouse? Because I have a couple.
Bring it on.
So,
Travel inspiration.
well, I think that's interesting, but I'm actually thinking more closer to how we're seeing Clubhouse used right now, which is a B2B aspect. I actually think if you are a hotel that has a meetings and events team, that having Clubhouse about meeting and events, to kind of talk to meeting planners and things like that, would be a really easy way to start. And chances are, if you're running it, you're probably going to have other hoteliers hop in from other markets that are going to talk about meeting and events as well, but it's under your room, your group of your hotel type thing. So you could actually host some really interesting thought leadership on like throwing the best, planning the best wedding if you're a first time planner, if talking about, really interesting approaches to COVID protocols and, while keeping meetings fun. Like you could do topics like that. And I think you would get a pretty interesting array of community, but there are definitely non-hospitality people on Clubhouse. They're there. Some of them are going to be travelers. And I think as Clubhouse exits its whatever this phase is, you're going to see more people trying it. And I think you'll have that opportunity to have a voice before it gets just super crowded. Like I personally think for what I enjoy about Clubhouse right now, it's got about a 6-month window before it gets just no longer beneficial.
Well, it'd be like Twitter, right? Kind of the same curve as
Twitter,
maybe
was
more
never,
accelerated.
Twitter was never good. I
no,
want to be
They're
clear.
still here.
Oh, I heartily disagree.
I
Yeah.
completely
Twitter
agree.
is good for one thing. It's understanding something that's happening in real time. Every other form of Twitter is pointless.
No.
Oh,
I
that's
gotta
not
disagree on that
And it's
one, too.
because of the users.
And yet here they are.
Well,
It's because of
now,
the users.
early on, though, Twitter was really.
You're talking
pretty
about
dumb.
when people were tweeting about sitting on the toilet? Or are you talking about earlier than that?
Oh, and
No, I'm talking about when they
No,
were
no,
taking
no, no.
pictures of their hamburgers, but the idea is that
No.
it actually has segmented out pretty well, and if you can clear through the clutter, it actually is very effective.
Yeah, but the problem is when you
topic
look at
dialogue.
engagement on Twitter, most engagement is a quick click and an abandon because the person is clicking to see if they want to retweet it. They actually don't have a lot of interest in moving through it.
It depends. It depends on the people. I mean, there's some folks, journalists and things like that. Legit journalists, I think, are using it quite effectively.
I do
think
agree that the
legitimate-
news and journalism, like Twitter, is their jam.
Going back to the Clubhouse real quickly,
I find it
hotels is also too, if you want to treat it like a radio station. We've tried podcasting for hotels, but it's static data. This can be a little bit more lively, that especially if you're going into event-driven events or peak season demand to your market. If you had a scheduled conversation about things that are going on and or things to prepare for and or reasons to come or something like this that you could put up and push in your generalized market, say, hey, come join us on Mondays as we talk about getting ready for the Lollapalooza Festival. You might have some relevant current radio-esque dialogue of people interested in your information if you've kept yourself propagated like that. I think there might be some value to that. Sorry, Tim.
Tim had something to say there.
Yeah,
at
go
one
ahead.
point.
No, all I was going to say was Twitter is about curation in terms of curation of the network, right? Like the best thing, the most underused feature of Twitter, the best feature of Twitter, I use it all the time, are lists.
Yeah.
Because you're grouping like people together. You're seeing what topics are those folks talking about. And they give you a good sense of what are the kinds of topics I need to be paying attention to? What are the types of topics I need to be learning about? What are the types of topics I need to be thinking about? I use it continually to message test. Where did I get engagement? Where did I get clicks? And those become things that you then double down on in future content and the like. So it can be a great thing for that. And it's really about, are you connecting with people? You know, the thing about social networks always is it's always about people, right? Social is people. I'm going to give Stuart another tweetable moment there, right? Social is people at its core. And the idea is, you know, make absolute liberal use of the mute button and the block button on Twitter. Make absolute liberal use of lists to group people together in the ways that make the content more usable and useful, you know. But it's a fantastic way. And I think Clubhouse is going to have to do the same thing at a certain point. I think when Twitter Spaces gets opened up to everybody in a couple of weeks, which is Twitter's Clubhouse, the same thing is going to be true, right? Where it's how do you aggregate the people that you want to have content from and the content that you want to engage with most regularly, so that it makes it easy for you to kind of like dip into the stream, get some information, and then move on.
It wasn't funny enough to interrupt you with, but I had to chat it. It was the first thing that popped into my head when you said it.
Well,
right,
given that, you know, some social is in fact, you know, pretty much eating the world and eating people, you're onto something there.
But with a nice Chianti, it's not that it's great.
Some fava beans.
Yeah, maybe some sautéed fava beans. You got to try it.
Okay, can I bring it? That's good to pass the Clubhouse, past the Twitter, but go into a higher level of where's all the communication channels going for us, because we are kind of reaching to I wouldn't say cliff's edge, but we're reaching a transition point in our culture right now, and what's going to happen next for us. I know we're trying to relate it to travel and what we do about it, but we are transitioning as a society into different processes now. Clubhouse is just an indication of another channel being used to dialogue.
The one difference in Clubhouse, I will say that I think I'd like your perspective on it. One of the things I like about it is it's not my echo chamber. I'm exposed to people that otherwise I'm not connected to on LinkedIn. I'm not, I have kind of a hierarchy. If you're friends with me on Facebook, we're friends. If we're connected on LinkedIn, we're professionally connected. What I like about Clubhouse is it hasn't yet fallen into tribes. So general rooms, if you have an open room, it's open and anyone can pop in. And if you're running an open, kind of forum, they can talk. And these are people who you wouldn't otherwise have probably come across in your, kind of normal social footprint. That's actually, because I've done a lot of thinking about what it is that's drawing me to Clubhouse. And it's the exposure to people that are outside of my circles. That's actually the thing I'm enjoying the most.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Ed. And I've made that comment with a lot of people about how diverse my conversations are in every dimension of that word. In it, when I stop and think about it, that I've committed a lot of time to Clubhouse, but
you have.
But I do think a lot of times it's kind of I'm multitasking, but the amount of time I invest, but the value I get out of it, I think the ROI for me is better than any other social network I've ever seen. But for that same reason, I'm getting new ideas, new thoughts, new creative thinking that doesn't come to me in my normal networks. No offense to you guys, but we all say the same stuff 9 out of 10, or we're very fixed on our opposition of a subject. But the diversity that I'm getting on Clubhouse I haven't seen on any other network.
By the way, I do think when you use Twitter well, that's what Twitter does well, in all candor, in all seriousness, because it's a social network of ideas. Clubhouse is a social network of ideas, right?
Yeah, I think there's a little more bandwagoning though on Twitter than there is in Clubhouse.
Oh, well, of course. Well, it's been around for a lot longer. I think you will see that. I think you will see that with Clubhouse over time, personally, just because as you know, at some point it's going to get too big, right? Today it's small.
Yep.
And at a certain point, it's too big. What you need, this happens everywhere, by the way. This has been true. Where did Yahoo come from? When Yahoo was the first great portal on the internet, where did search come from? And we're talking, Alta Vista before, and other things like that before Google. Where did Google come from? Where did Facebook come from? Where did LinkedIn come from? It was curation of this mass of stuff. At some point, when things get too big, you need a leaderboard. You have to have some way of saying, where do I start? Yeah. And that's where you start to get the followers who are saying, well, okay, or what's the word I'm looking for? Where you start to get, the homogeneity around topics because, well, the leaderboard's talking about it, so now we must too, because that's clearly how they got there.
Yeah, but
that's not a knock on Clubhouse. That is a fundamental principle of what happens once you start to get a large.
Yeah, there is no caste system right now in Clubhouse.
Correct.
And it's going to be hard for that to develop. Although I think you'll see tribes start to form in clubs and scheduled rooms and stuff because it's not recorded. It's different because you have to be there right then. To agree or disagree or to bandwagon or to detract. So. I don't see it getting the same kind of momentum like a hashtag does on Twitter, where people can see it days later and join in the banter. And oftentimes it accelerates after the fact. It's once it hits critical mass is where things become a movement on Twitter. So I think that element's missing in Clubhouse, and I'm sort of glad that it is. It makes it different.
I am too. I'd also like to add to it too the diversity of the people that are on it right now. You first would easily say they're early adopters or not. But I got to tell you, one practice I've done is that people that come into our room and we're talking, I'm automatically following them under the context of, okay, I'm following more than I'm being followed perhaps, but I'm also, if they're staying in the room long enough for me to follow them, then they're interested in whatever it is that brought them to the room. Because obviously we see so many selections that people can come into. I'm seeing a lot of hotel owners. I'm seeing a lot of corporate people. There is a great equalizer right now that you're actually getting in front of people that normally you can't get in front of. Simply maybe out of even their own curiosity of what's here. What is this? Okay, everybody's buzzing about it. Yeah.
Everyone is interested in exploring right now because everything is new. And I think that's one of the really interesting aspects of Clubhouse right now is that every person on it is trying to discover what's this about? What are people talking about? I think if that wears off, that will wear off some of the shine.
Yeah, the novelty's going to go, and we're not all going to be pioneers forever, right? So I think that we'll lose. One of the things I've liked about the platform is I feel like because it's an audio platform, it's more intimate. It's similar to podcasting. Podcasting is a very intimate thing. You get to know the hosts of the shows you listen to regularly, and I get the same kind of feeling, but amplified on Clubhouse because you can have a two-way dialogue. But what I found is the connections I've made, there's more inherent trust in those connections. And it's actually, for us, led to 3 or 4 really good quality sales leads where we've been talking about stuff and without sales pitching, somehow one of our software products comes up and they're like, oh, I'd like to learn more about that. And we take it offline to a demo. But the starting point of that demo is very different than our typical sales cycle because we already feel like we know each other and we have inherent trust because of the connection on Clubhouse.
First of all, I want to say a couple things real quick. First, I agree with everything you said, Stuart. I absolutely agree with everything you said.
But sorry.
No, it's not. No, it's not a but. It's not a but. Before I bring in the and there is an and. The second thing I want to say is Clubhouse's massive innovation. You brought up an interesting point from when you mentioned podcasts. I think almost everybody on this show right now either has a podcast or is a guest on a podcast regularly. And The downside of podcasts, and I love podcasts, I get them and the like, is that if you don't know how to set up a podcast, they're hard to create from scratch, right? If you don't know anything, they're not the hardest thing in the world to do, but they're hard when the alternative is go to LinkedIn and type something in the box that says what's going on, or they're hard when like Twitter and you go in and say what are you doing. They're hard compared to Facebook. What Clubhouse has done is that they've made publishing audio as easy as publishing a tweet, as easy as publishing something on LinkedIn. It's a massive
and it keeps it from certain ones rising above. Because I mean, part of what makes podcasts difficult is there are some really well produced podcasts.
Correct. That's
which
correct.
Then sets
That's
a
exactly
standard that draws people in, and if you can't come close to that standard,
you're amateur you're at a disadvantage, right?
Right.
So that is a huge innovation from a making content creation easy. At the same time, so all of that I completely agree with, and I like Clubhouse a lot. At the same time,
hold on.
No, I really do. I genuinely do. I think it's a neat service, right?
There's a text message.
Hear me out, though. Hear me out. The challenge is at the moment, according to depending on whose data you go by, there are about 2 million weekly active users on Clubhouse, which is tiny. It's impressive given that they had 1,500 in May of last year.
And they're only on one platform. They're only on iOS.
But 2 million is nothing.
Yeah, globally, yeah, for sure.
Nothing is tiny.
2 million, and what is the extent of the? Yeah,
they've had 10 million downloads so far, total, right? So total.
When
they go to
how many total?
10 million.
10 million. So when they get to 100 million weekly users, which they could, right? They absolutely could. You need some form of curation. So I think we're experiencing right now a benefit of the current reality, just like we did in the early days of Twitter, just like we did in the early days of LinkedIn. And I hate LinkedIn at the moment. How many of you hate LinkedIn because the minute somebody sees you get your inbox filled with
it's become a sales nightmare.
Yeah,
it's become a sales nightmare, right?
Oh my god, yeah.
But LinkedIn used to be great. Used to be fantastic, right? So the challenge that Clubhouse is going to have is, can they keep this same culture, the same cultural value that you like so much, when there are 100 million users every week? And so I'm not saying people shouldn't take advantage of it. I'm saying now is the time to take advantage of it.
Sammy, I love the point that you made. I think you should say it, not just chat it.
Who said this?
Tammy.
There's some construction going on outside my window, so hopefully you're not hearing what I'm hearing.
Yeah, please.
But no, when Stuart was talking earlier, about the audio quality of it, it basically said it's like the blind auditions on The Voice, right? You don't really know what you only hear the content, and so you're finding, I think, to your guys' point, and of course, like I said, I haven't been on Clubhouse. I logged in, I went, okay, I'll get back to that later. And that was Tuesday. So, and now it's Friday. And considering that I get on here once every 3 months, in about 3 months, I'll be back on. But I do think it's been really interesting listening to the conversations and listening. I love the idea. You guys are right, that the concept of the echo chamber, right? We all know each other and we're all connected on various channels. And you see the people you're connected to. When I go to LinkedIn, I see info from the folks that I'm connected to, not necessarily ones I'm not. So I love the idea of being able to hear different things from different people. I also love the idea of spontaneous conversations. So I don't have to prep a deck and spend hours working on a bunch of different stuff. It's just having that dialogue and that. I'm curious though, I'd like to, sorry, I'm going to go back on mute here in a sec.
Sounds like they got a didgeridoo in the background.
Tying it back to
excuse me, a little indigestion. I'm very sorry.
It takes Stuart back to his childhood in the outback.
Yeah, it's just the HOA decided winter pandemic was the perfect time to replace all the windows in the buildings, and then decided they would do additional construction on top. I'd say anyway. I will go back on mute. But I'd be really curious, talking more about like how, I love the idea from a meeting planner perspective, like getting meeting planners and talking about best ways to do meetings or hybrid meetings, things. What other ideas do we have that can help the hotels that are on the line, like take advantage of this platform? Because as we all said, right now is the time to join. And then also, I think we should address, because I got to be honest, part of the reason I didn't sign up for Clubhouse was like, I got 5 million other things I'm doing right now. It's one more thing. What's the value? So to that DOS that is tired, that is not only trying to sell their hotel, but they're helping strip rooms and they're covering a desk shift and they're doing all the other things. What's the value of Clubhouse for them? Please, Lauren, go ahead.
So, actually, to your point of busyness,
I sound just like Ed, by the way,
because I'm very, I've been very busy lately as well. And it's actually why I talked to Stuart to see if he wanted, because I noticed he was on early in the morning. That's why I talked to Stuart to see if he wanted to do a morning one, because I can't just pop in constantly throughout the day. I've been struggling to get on this show consistently because of just how crazy things have been. And this was one of the things I thought was interesting about Clubhouse is you can do your own room and you can talk about whatever you want to try and get what you want to get out of Clubhouse. So if I was a DOSM wanting like an hour of a day of education, I would open up a room and open it and promote it. And promoting it's not hard. I mean, I post on LinkedIn, I invite people to hop in, but then rooms just tend to get gravity because everyone can see who's in what room.
Just use Tim Peters' name. Just put Tim as your moderator.
And I would drive the topic that I want to talk about, what I want to get in value. And that's kind of what Stuart and I are doing in the morning is, yes, we're letting it be open, but we keep kind of driving it to like things we find interesting. And I threaten the room that if you don't come up and contribute, we're really going to talk about things we're interested in, which is going to fall on like Star Wars or Marvel or something like that. And it never fails. Every time I've said it, a hand goes up.
And I'm always disappointed. Now, I will say there's an inherent limitation, right, in this platform, and that is it is a time suck. Like I found myself early on, I spent like one weekend that my wife was working, and I spent literally the whole weekend just learning the system and trying to figure it out and really having some serendipitous conversations that turn into gems. But you can't do that throughout the week because you're working, and it's not a thing you can just jump into for a couple of minutes like Twitter or Facebook where you can just scroll a little bit. You have to commit serious time to this platform. So what I found is early in the morning around 8 a.m. where I'm checking emails for the day and kind of get my day organized, I can kind of multitask and listen in and contribute. And Ed's found this fun game where he likes to catch me out by every 5 or so minutes. He'll say, "What do you think about that, Stuart?" And I was half listening, so I get caught out sometimes. But then the other time I'll do it is lunchtimes. If I don't have a meeting at lunchtimes while I'm eating my lunch, I'll turn it on for an hour or so. But it is an investment. You've got to be on there for significant periods at a time.
But I'll echo what Stuart said. I've already picked up deals off of this, and I'm 2 weeks in. I'm 2 weeks in, and I've spent a few hours on it, and I've picked up some deals that I was not going to get otherwise. Like
to go to Tim, what Tim was asking about. Okay, me, Mr. Early Adopter, and also me. I have to say, I have an opposite side of that coin. I try to be consistent as the rain. Okay.
Yeah.
In the sense, if we're going to do something, I want to make sure that we're consistent with it, or it's not worth it to try. That being said, to answer your question about the DOS, this is fresh and new. You don't have to pattern yourself after somebody else. You don't have to, what's the exact way of doing this? Somebody figured out by hitting their mute button that looked like applause. Okay. Now it turns into what most people do. It doesn't mean that's what you have to do. I would say this is the anti-polarization platform. And I mean this in one way. When you used to listen to Mr. Rush Limbaugh, if you ever did, you couldn't disagree with the man. You just had to listen to the stuff that he was talking about. Here, if you don't like what's being said, you can raise your hand. Now, it's their choice to let you up or not, but like in any conference, you have the ability to contribute. Here's the part that I like, and also I think there's a worry to this. If you're going to contribute, you better come up with what you think is right, because immediately if you come off of just trolling, you're muted. I've seen that happen in rooms. Somebody comes, "This is a bunch of click." They didn't even finish what he were, there's a good way of controlling that, but it also means if you're making conversation, if you're opening up a room saying I want to talk about this, and somebody comes in, if it's an open room, I mean there's conditions to this, and they disagree, and you brought them up on stage, if you shut them off, you're cutting your nose off to anybody else in that room.
Mm-hmm.
By the same token, as a listener, not having to participate, I get to hear, is it blue or is it red? Is Ed really full of crap or is he really smart? You know, and from all of that, you get to
Let's
really
take a show of hands. No.
There's no need. Everyone already knows. This is episode 293, Robert.
So from that, it's kind of like the best of a conference where, you know me at conferences, I'm like, as soon as they say, is there questions? Doink, you know, I want to participate in the dialogue. This to me, this is like, you know, crack cocaine. Like, yeah, I want to talk. Sure, raise my hand. You know, there's plenty of rooms, actually, ironically, that I listen to because I don't really, to Ed's point, there's times I don't have anything to, or Tim's point, I don't have anything really to contribute, but I want to know more about what you're talking about and how you see it. And it is not your echo chamber. It is like, I hadn't thought about that. We've had some people, Ed, you've been there. And sir, you've been there on the conversations that come in and have a whole different perspective. I'm like, Gordon, remember, was it Gordon? I kept calling him Gordon. Was it Gordon? That guy, the name began with a G. And he was talking about the emotional draw of something, and it was totally a perspective I had never thought of. I'm like, wow, that's freaking insightful, dude.
I got to be honest, I'm enjoying the non-hospitality perspectives that keep popping into these rooms. They're actually leading to some of the more interesting conversations.
Yeah.
Like we had a guy today come in to the marketing room who sells some type of bamboo product for like, I think it was linens or something. And at first, or toothbrushes, bamboo toothbrushes.
Yeah.
And he had asked a question that was kind of a loaded question. However, like completely rolled with the conversation and where it went. And it actually was a pretty interesting conversation. It was a conversation I'm glad I witnessed and took part in.
Yeah. I want to talk to something what Joshua pointed out, and I want to answer in one way. Strong hosts can control it, but if it's not a strong host, strong audiences help with it too. That if somebody goes in and begins to dominate, overtake, or totally take off the reservation, the dialogue, other hosts tend to like, that's nice, but we really were talking about this kind of thing. Yeah. Actually, Ed's really good at that too, because he's like, that's nice, but that's not what we're talking about.
It's like, great, now there's another person up on stage.
So
what is it be a moderator?
Yeah, but all of these tools, it doesn't matter. If WordPress, right, democratized the ability to blog, right? Pretty dramatic, shift change with that. Certainly podcasting, right? To do that. Clubhouses, to Twitter, all of these different things are tools. And to quote, not Tim Peter, I believe was Paul Virilio, but that's okay. When you invent the ship, you invent the shipwreck, right? So the concern is I strong proponent. Facebook at the beginning was really good, right? I mean, people really got engaged as well, and then all of a sudden it got cluttered, right? And I equate it to, well, Dalkin, anybody in New York, the bridge and tunnel people for clubs, right? In New York City, right, is the problem. The clubs are hot. Sorry, Tim, being in New Jersey. But the challenge is these clubs are hot. They're hot for 6 months because it's the cool inside, the cool kids are all there. And then all of a sudden, when everybody else figures out about it gets spoiled, and then they go on to the new thing. Now, the question for Clubhouse is, how do you avoid that and let everybody get engaged and controlled? And the challenge is the high quality hosts and moderation. That's a subset. And maybe it is only the X million of people who are the early adopters, and then the other folks are going to start using it like LinkedIn, right? Let's just try to sell crap and inject in conversation.
That's the worst. By the way,
yeah.
First rule of Clubhouse is even if people ask
it.
you what you do, you keep it super high level and super fast, because there's nothing more annoying than someone who goes up and promotes their wares or their services.
Yeah.
Like and we've had people do it on our rooms. I get text messages from people who are in the room who have my phone number going, please stop this. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I want to go back to Tammy's question though, right? Because if you're DOSM, I want to start at a more fundamental point. And Tammy, you're asking a great question, because it goes back to what is your marketing strategy and what is your content strategy, right? This is a content distribution channel that also happens to be a creation channel, right? There's a bunch of things you can do there. So it goes back to, what's the message you're trying to get out? Who are you trying to talk to? What is the right way to do that? And how does this complement that or not, as the case may be, and make a decision for your property about, is it a good use of your time, right? There's going to be parts of it that definitely will be. There are parts of it that definitely won't be. I agree with Ed in terms of the meetings and event space. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think there's a lot of opportunity to talk about a destination. I think there's a lot of opportunity to talk about, just hospitality more generally, and support your local community. Make the Charleston show, or make the Myrtle Beach show, or
Absolutely.
make the best
Well,
of
and
the
I was
show.
talking
And there
to-
could be some really cool stuff there from that perspective.
I was talking to one
But
of the
it goes
DMO
back-
agencies.
Give me 1 second, Ed. It just goes back to what is that content strategy, and how does this support that? Over to you, Ed.
Yeah, so I mean, you make a good point. I was talking to one of the DMO agencies we work with, and I asked them, I said, what are your thoughts on Clubhouse? Like, are you thinking about anything to try from a regional perspective? And they said they are. They're actually thinking through both a promotion strategy, because one of the challenges with Clubhouse is it's only iPhone users or iPad users. It's also really hard in network to market it. So you have to market it externally to drive people into it. So one of the things they're thinking about is that, but the other thing is topical. Like, what should you do? It shouldn't just be droning on presentation, because that is not what this is for. But what would someone benefit from sitting in one of these? And one of the things they did kind of latch into that they thought was interesting right now is the fact that if you lit up a room for a destination, it would draw people who otherwise would not consider the destination at all, and you potentially have the chance of immediately inserting yourself in someone's itinerary.
Yeah, Visit Scotland has a club, and it's pretty popular. They have a good number of followers, but they're hosting just different rooms. A lot of times I've jumped into a few, and it's really loosely tied to Scotland, but every time they're branding Visit Scotland. It's really a good strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and along those lines, we've got a lot of travelers right now that are in that dreamer phase. We've talked a lot about the revenge of travel, pent up demand, all those things. So now I'm dreaming about it. I'm dreaming, geez, I want to go to a Caribbean island or Scotland or whatever it may be. So I can see that being an advantage. The DMO coming
Those
on.
are very different vacations, by the way.
Well, they are. So you've got the clubhouse room that's going on there, and people can just join in and say, "Hey, what's going on in Puerto Rico?" or whatever it might be, right? And talk about COVID, talk about your policies and restrictions, and what that's all about. What is open, what's not open, what activities are there to do. There's just a lot of stuff to talk about, and when you're in that dreamer stage, you want to do those things.
Going to CRM and our conversations from before, it's about the timing of your interest. And I always keep using this example. When you're wanting to buy a car, you watch every car commercial. When you're not buying a car, the car commercials are still running. You're just not paying attention to them anymore. And the same too with this perpetual dialogue. It just like Twitter, everything else. There's a huge, deep pipeline of constant stuff out there, and it's not cluttered yet here in Clubhouse. So if you do want to go see the Scotland Club, it's interesting to you at the moment, maybe curious to begin with, but then you go in and you listen to it, and it's you're finding out things about stuff. I would make the recommendation, and I've noticed this just in myself. I'm being selective about what I join, because I think I'm looking at it from the idea, what can I contribute? I've shedded that this past week. That recent. I'm looking at stuff that I'm just flat out interested in, whether I can contribute to it or not. To your ecosystem conversation, it's like, I just want to hear other people that are smart about what they know, or whether they're not even smart. I just want to hear other people talk about how they see the world and see what they're talking about. I joined Kat, who's been on our show for how long? She had this room about women empowerment. I have nothing to do with it other than contributing to the idea that, yay, go for it, But listening to what they were doing is fascinating, because we've had many shows where we talked about how can we help with this. I was learning stuff that I didn't know about what they had to do about certain things that I just never came up in our show, because we were talking about hospitality. They were talking in a much broader term, and it was just a fascinating conversation to listen into.
And that's
Similarly, I went and listened to public relations. I mean, I may not be a public relations person, but kind of am, because I've dealt with it all these years for hotels. But it's nice to listen to what the actual journalists and PR people are saying to each other, and just be quiet.
A lot of media.
strategy.
There's a lot of media on there. I don't know if you've noticed that, but a lot of journalists are just coming in and listening into rooms. Yeah.
What we do with clients a lot, and this isn't a commercial for what I do at all, because I think everybody here probably does some element of this, is we always tell people do like core and explore, right? You're going to spend 90% of your time, 80% of your time on the things that you know are going to work. And you have to, but you also need to leave some time to try new things, learn new things, test new things, etc. So, I mean, that's the advice I would give DOSMs right now is this is in the explore phase. This is in the learn phase, right? And the way you use it today and the way you use it 6 months from now and the way you use it 6 months after that could change a lot. I would say that, the mistake that I would caution people away from making is, every time a new social network comes around, and we've probably all heard this, right? I'll pick, TikTok, because it was the thing last year was, everybody was like, well, what's our TikTok strategy? Yeah. And to me, that is always the wrong question. It's what's our strategy? And does TikTok support that? And if we don't know, do we dedicate some time to testing and learning and understanding and things like that so we can see, does it fit into our strategy? That's interesting thing, how I would approach Clubhouse from this perspective.
The interesting thing I'll point out about Clubhouse, though, that's very different from other recent entrants into social media, is this does not appear to be starting with the young folk. This actually seems to skew more of the band of people who are actively economic contributors versus TikTok and Snapchat and all of that, gained their popularity en masse amongst the people who have no money to give you and won't for years. So it is normally I'm one going, oh, you're asking what your TikTok strategy should be. It should be to know what it is and pay attention to when, actual, economic contributors take part in it. But until then, there's nothing to do there except for play. But what I do think is interesting that's different on Clubhouse is it is a wide array of people who are in kind of the peak, span of their contribution to the economy. And that seems to be a lot of who the early players are in this. And that's very different than every other social network that we've seen launch, which usually is a youth movement that then ages as it goes on.
Yeah, well, it was iOS and invitation based, right? So I think that strategy was very, very good for them to start and get a foothold and to get those things going. But the one thing I wanted to say is, and I think Tim's absolutely right. You've got to figure out what's your strategy on this, which may change over time, but you've got to think, especially when you get into the meeting space and things like that. Are you talking about a vertical, like we were talking about the destinations? I mean, the destination one I think is a no-brainer, right? And the question is how broad or how narrow do you want? You just want to be your market, or do you want to be your region, or how do you approach that, right? Because it's going to be a breadth versus depth type perspective. But then you're going to have all these horizontal areas because people are talking about honeymoons over here or family travel or whatever those key, maybe, and you can't be everything to everybody because it's just a muddle, right? So that's going to be a very interesting thing of how, especially for a hotel, how you play that, because just having people who are interested solely in your property isn't going to be enough, right? There's not enough real time access. We're just meeting planners we have proposals out for meetings within the next 24 months. That's not going to work, guys.
Just host a conference call.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
so, let me introduce everybody to Stephanie. Stephanie, since we're talking about Clubhouse, has been my technical advisor plus confidant as to what to do, how to do it, when to do it, do this, click this, find that. So since we're talking literally about a lot of the stuff you and I go back and forth about, Stephanie, please, hello. Good. Thank you for joining us today, actually.
Hi, thanks so much. I've never been on this platform before, so I just want to make sure you can hear me okay.
Yep.
No one else ever has either. Don't worry about
that. I came on, I'm like, oh, you guys are talking about Clubhouse. And that excited me. And I guess that I come from a different space than most of you do, in the sense that when I joined Clubhouse, I was coming in just to kind of learn from other people, not to push my message. And I think it's been fantastic because I have been able to connect with other hoteliers and other experts in the industry that I would never have a chance to speak to. And that connection with other people and just getting ideas of, hey, what are you doing at your hotel that's working? Or, you know, what are you seeing in the market that I might not know about? And I think it's a quick hour where I can listen like I'm listening to NPR if I was driving in the car, or I can participate. And I think it's been really, really beneficial. And it's not just on the hospitality industry. I've gone into rooms with SEOs, and there are some of the leaders in search engine optimization that I've had an opportunity to talk to who are giving me all this free knowledge and information that I don't think I would even get a chance to be in front of them, right? Like I would never even know who these people were. And to me, that's mind blowing.
Mm-hmm. It kind of goes.
Now, Stephanie,
No.
I know you've not been on this show before, but do know my role is to pick on you. So I would like to call out, you spend well more than an hour a day on Clubhouse.
But the stuff that I'm in is like helping me with my job.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
And yes, I'm on also, like there are times, like I was going to say for the destination travel, oh, you should definitely get on Girls Love Travel. And there are thousands of women who are talking, and men are in that room too, in the club, who are talking about their next travel adventures. So whether you host your own club or you can host a room within their club, you're going to have access to all these people. And you can repeat your topic multiple times, because you have to remember, this is a live opportunity where I might be able to listen to you at this time today, but you may not have the other million people, and maybe they come across you next week and you talk about the exact same thing next week, because it's new people all the time, right? So I do see the Android platform coming eventually. So, you know, they talk about
that'll ruin it. It's just going to ruin it.
Because
I get in there, everyone leaves.
So, the $1 million question then about Clubhouse: how do they monetize it? Sooner or later, they've got to start making money off of it.
Yeah, so there have been talks. Have you been to the town halls where they talk about monetization?
I have not.
There've been a couple of different things that I've heard about, whether they're true or rumors. Is there might be the opportunity for tipping. So if you go to a speaker's room that you really enjoyed the information or what they shared, you can tip the speaker or the people that are contributing. So that is one thing
interesting.
Looked at. The other thing that's being looked at is, you know, brands aren't really not welcome on the platform, but it's like you have the person comes in, like I've seen people come in with their logos, and they set up, maybe they have another iPhone and they set up an account with a chatbot logo. And then that chatbot follows you. And I'm like, I'm not interested in really following a product. I'm interested in connecting with people. So that's kind of not really, it's frowned upon, let's say. But they're talking about brands being able to come in, like a brand might sponsor a room. And so you might see a heading of that particular. So some like that's like sponsorships, but that's, I think, down the road. I've heard that happening. And then there's the idea that clubs can charge to be in the club. That might be an option where they charge a nominal fee and then you're in the club and maybe you get special access. So like the first 15 minutes of the room is just for club members, and then it opens up to everybody else or whatever it might be. So they're talking about it. There's currently an accelerator program that people can apply to. I think the deadline is March 31st. Probably want to check that, where they're taking 20 people who have unique ideas or concepts for Clubhouse, and they're going to give them $5,000 and a lot of training and assistance and connections to help them grow this. So if you have a really unique idea or concept for Clubhouse, this might be something that you might want to apply for.
So Stuart, you and I should pitch the Idiocracy idea, which is everything is brought to you by Carl's Jr. I mean, it may work.
Okay, a couple of things I think that
actually, quick. I apologize. I do have to bounce. Stephanie, that's fantastic stuff. I really appreciate that.
I've actually
love seeing you all as always. Unfortunately, I have a thing at the bottom of the hour, so
Nope. Mr. Tim, just know I'm going to keep using your name in vain. You can join us at any time, but I will be using your name in vain. Saying, no, Tim Peter might really be here. Sure, he might show up at the party.
Kind of like Santa
Absolutely.
arriving. It's the same thing.
Okay.
Tim, have a great
do wanna
weekend.
talk
Have a good weekend.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Tim.
See y'all later.
I've got to jump
Bye
too, guys.
Bye, Mr. Stewart.
Pleasure
We'll
spending
talk
all
about
this
you when
time
you're
with you.
gone. That's okay.
That's good.
I do want to bring in the one thing about that I enjoy about Clubhouse that until you start talking about something is that as you open up a room, it means you have something to say. And it's like being a speaker in front of the room. I always liked asking questions when I'm at a conference because I want to get in front of somebody that normally I'm not in front of because they're smart enough to have been on stage. I want to be able to dialogue with them. I want to ask them a question. And because they're on stage, they're kind of in a position they have to answer me because, hey, they're on stage. That's what they're there for, is to present information. And it kind of feels like that on Clubhouse, where if you're opening or in a room or you're a speaker in a room, it's because you're trying to contribute to that conversation, which means I can ask you questions. So bring me up on stage so I can ask you a question, kind of thing. And it does mean that you're talking to really incredible people that are really there because they want to contribute something. And you're going to get some information you wouldn't normally get by having an appointment and sitting in a lobby waiting for them to have you come in and talk to them and maybe pay them to do it. So it does add to that ability of getting in front of some people and getting information you wouldn't normally get. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Just one thing to add. It seems Clubhouse, at least from what I've read about it, I've been trying to study them remotely since I am an Android guy. That I think they're making a very smart step in supporting at least the funding model of how to support these the content creators, right? And to make sure that that's taken care of first, right? Because I think they figure if they can get the content creators to start earning revenue, this to be a productive platform, have quality conversation, then the audience will expand and things will go, and then they can figure out their monetization of what cut do they take off of advertising, or they set up their own advertising network over the top where they can have this and start helping those content creators earn money. They do not quite the way Apple took to the App Store, but maybe a slight variation where the toll gate isn't quite as quite as abrupt at the beginning and say, here's how you do it. And I think if they do that, that will be a very, very smart thing. Because again, Twitter didn't do that, and it just kind of became this morass.
My only concern with the professional creators who are being paid to do this is one of the things I enjoy the most about Clubhouse is random people could end up on stage with a completely different point of view. And when you get to someone who's making money and putting a lot of effort into scripting out what the conversation is going to be, how it's going to be presented, it robs that a bit. They're not going to just welcome randos up on stage. And I'll be honest with you, it's the randos going up on stage that I'm kind of enjoying right now. And sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I thought one monetization model early on was, why wouldn't there be an exit audio ad, a tease ad? Like, say, I'm going to support the hospitality club. And so anytime somebody joins a room in that club, then an exit 5-second blurb, hey, don't forget such and such XYZ. Or, you can actually add it to your own, where that gives some revenue share to the club and or the people that are running the room, or some means of segmentation that way. That way it's not invasive into the dialogue, but it's supportive of the content that the club was made for, maybe.
Well, and think about podcasts too. I mean, on podcast platforms, a lot of the podcasts I listen to, they do hey, this podcast is brought to you by so-and-so and so-and-so, and we're going to talk about that later. And then they move into some of the content, and then they squeeze in a little clip, just like radio, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and you look at Pod Save America, Conan O'Brien, some of the guys who have really large, engaged, very profitable podcasts on. Their ad segments are going for 7-10 minutes, right? And they aren't, again, they aren't conventional ads of just here's a little audio blurb produced by the advertiser. They're talking about it, and sometimes they're ripping on Casper mattress or whatever the popular thing is. But again, it's getting out there and going. So I think Clubhouse can again have some very, very creative things, and the folks who do the conventional static the magazine and television broadcast, that's going to fail. Even the standard radio approach, right? They've got to figure out how do you keep this engaged and how to keep it exciting and not spoil the party.
Well, and I think you also have an opportunity that as influencers develop inside a Clubhouse, which they absolutely will, you can have influencers hosting brand Q&A.
Yeah.
And that in itself.
I've seen where there was some dialogue, and Stephanie, you can definitely talk to this, where some large following people were being paid to show up in the rooms so that they would bring an audience with them because of the followings that they had. And I thought that was kind of like, but hey, Stephanie, I want to reapproach something Tammy had asked about. How do you see Clubhouse being used for like a DOS at a hotel? You weren't on when we were live with us. You were in the chat at the time, so I'd love to bring it back because you are way more engaged with the Clubhouse and much more knowledgeable about it than I know I am. So
any of us.
Okay.
Of course, everybody.
Remember, so sometimes 3-letter acronyms throw me for a loop. So can you please?
Director of sales. Somebody that's running sales for the hotel. Somebody that's running the sales efforts for the hotel.
Sales. I just wanted to make sure the other day some 3-letter acronym and I was in the wilderness mindset and they're like, no, W stands for women. I'm like, oh, okay, sorry. I always clarify now because there's too many ways. Okay, so for a director of sales.
Or just a hotel, or hotel marketing. How can Clubhouse possibly help just a hotel?
Well, I think one of the things is, like, for example, when I've been in some rooms, I didn't even know certain hotels existed. So you're just generating awareness just by the person who's coming on stage, right? Like, especially in smaller rooms, as soon as you come on stage, a lot of people go and check out the people's profiles who are on stage. And if you have a good profile that's written, you would talk about your property, for example, and how wonderful it is maybe, or about you, either way, it depends on who you are and what your goal is when you're on Clubhouse. And, just by saying, I'm the director of sales at such and such a property, and we specialize in XYZ, and keep it super short because nobody wants to hear a big, long story about yourself, and get to the comment or the question, right? And if you're trying to get people to come to your location to book an event, then you go into a room where people are talking to those type of marketers, and you just comment or ask a question, and you'll have people finding you and seeing you, and you talk about maybe why your property is unique or something that you're doing to help those event planners. Like maybe you're saying, well, at our hotel, we do a Facebook Live walkthrough where while we go through all the rooms, you can ask questions. I'm going to highlight some special architecture in this room that you're going to find unique, or, this is our AV department, and here's the person you'd be talking to get your AV done, and you just say, that's what we do at our hotel. So if any of you are interested in checking out how we do our live Facebook views of our property, so you've done two things. One, you're educating them on how they can do a live Facebook or whatever, and you're taking them through your property, and now you're showing them all the bells and whistles that you have, right? So it's just a different approach.
Smart.
That's just one idea.
No,
that's great. Yeah, and again, like Twitter, it's not necessarily the platform where you do all of this deep stuff, right? But you refer it to other property. You refer to your website, you refer to your Facebook page, you refer to link, wherever the deeper content winds up residing, where you want to leave them.
Yeah, interesting. Last night, my friend. So I called because for the last few weeks we've been getting into these SEO rooms, and I think us are giving back. Like if we have an area of expertise, like for example, I have one in hiking, camping, and backpacking. So I do a room every Sundays and talk about that topic. And I want to give back to people so they can get out there and be safe. Like that's my number one goal, to reduce accidents out on the trail. People enjoy nature and they feel really confident. So I'm giving back. And I have a friend who gives back to photographers and helping them with their SEO. And what he did last night was he set up a Zoom call, and the moderator said, when I walked into the room, they're like, hey, Stephanie, we're doing a Zoom. We're talking about it on Clubhouse. We're visualizing it. We're seeing it on Zoom. If you'd like to join, the number is in my profile at the top. You can we're on Zoom, and that's the number. And I was like, oh, that was really cool. Now, I was actually driving, going to the grocery store at the time, just listening. but I knew what he was talking about and I could visualize it all. But these were things that, you know, a small photography business isn't going to be able to hire an agency to do their SEO for them. And he was talking about how to use Google Analytics and Google Search Console. I mean, there are a lot of independent hotels that they don't know how to use Google Analytics either, for example, and they could have really benefited from something like that as well. So, but it was just using two platforms, Clubhouse and Zoom together. Right.
I love that idea. And first of all, you're right. In fact, I would argue there are a lot of independent hotels that don't even know what Google Search Console is, let alone how to use DA. But I love that idea. And again, sorry, I'll be quick. The concept of tying it in with Zoom as well, because one of the questions I had is that when we were talking about like the DMOs, the visual versus, and Stephanie, first of all, I have signed up for Clubhouse as of Tuesday. I'm not on Clubhouse yet, right? So, and I see the value, and especially as we're talking. So, but I'm asking questions because I think it's important for our audience to really understand these things. And one of my questions we have on DMOs, the visual versus the audio, right? I'm hoping to go to Europe. That hope is dwindling by the day. That is going to happen this year, but watching YouTube videos and getting the visual of Italy and all the cool things in Paris and that, and how do we tie that into Clubhouse where it's just an audio format? So I love that concept of tying it in with Zoom to give that visual, but I would love from everyone any other thoughts on that. And again, I will look back on me.
Well, you know, one thing I'll say is, since DMOs like to spend money on things, like if I was going to do a DMO like campaign that I wanted to be big and draw a lot of attention on Clubhouse, I would hire someone like James Earl Jones to do the narration, because let's face it, people like hearing that voice.
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman, Tom Hanks, you know, all very inexpensive voiceover artists that have, you know, really like, you know, very easy to get in contact with, and people generally like their voice. It's a very simple thing to do, and probably only would cost like $20-30 million to put on, and you know, but you'd get 5 or 6 travelers out of it easy. So, I mean, lifetime value.
Yeah. It's interesting that you talk about this stuff, that there will be crossovers of things, because I mean, I think even Stuart made the comment to put the link to this show in my bio so people knew when I referred to it that they could go see something and find the link to it. And it goes to a little bit of the inspiration you were mentioning about wanting to give back or contribute. The idea that you hear me say it all the time in our room is that, look, this isn't to self-promote or promote. This is really a content about helping people understand hospitality marketing. And to keep it to that point and to make sure that we keep reminding people, I've learned out of process that, you know, the room is constantly changing. So you always have to reset the room to let people know where they are in the conversation that they've just joined. And you do get a lot of repeat dialogue. You get somebody asked the same question that was just asked 10 minutes ago, or you're getting to go over the same territory you did 10 minutes ago. And you want to not defer the people that have been watching the whole time, or listening the whole time, but you also don't want to displace the people that just joined, feeling like they're not being able to ask a question. It is unique in that. And the video, the Zoom thing is brilliant, because I know Stuart, who left already, was trying to coordinate his podcasting recording with more being a live show in combination with it being a room on Clubhouse. And he had massive audio issue problems because it's just on a phone, and somehow you got to make that audio work two-way. So
I've got a quick question for Stephanie. What do you think about Twitter Spaces and say Instagram live rooms and things like that? I mean, because obviously you love Clubhouse, right? You're engaged with it. Apparently spending lots of time. So are those pariahs and never they aren't the OG, or are you really kind of try those too?
Yeah. Well, I think the one thing I really like about Clubhouse is everybody kind of starts at zero. Sure, if you have a big following on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn, you know, that following may start following you on Clubhouse right away as well. So, you know, is it really a level playing field? Well, it is on day one, and then, you know, however the numbers go. But anybody can set up a room and anybody can set up a club. So I really like that fact that it's not just an elite group. So let's go to Facebook rooms. I've been on Facebook rooms. It's part of social media marketing world, had a Facebook room where everybody who was in the quote conference could participate in like an after presentation talk. But it's challenging because you can't kind of see everybody. And I know on Clubhouse, you can't really see everybody either. But I found it wasn't as, it was okay. Like, I'm not gonna say it wasn't, but I don't know. People aren't really using the rooms on Facebook the way I think that they were intended.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't done IG rooms. Now I have been in Twitter spaces, and that's kind of only a select hand-picked beta group of people can set up a space currently because it's in that beta phase. And there's some things I really like about it. Like I like that you can turn closed captioning on right away, or transcript, for example, whereas on Clubhouse you can't. Yeah, you have to use a reader if you're hearing impaired, for example. So I like that on Twitter side. I like on Twitter that there is like different emotions. So I can laugh, I can send 100%, like a hands up, like a high five kind of thing, to a person that I'm connected with. So if I'm connected with them, I can send it to them. If I'm not, I can just kind of put it on my own profile and be like, clap, 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 right? And you see this little bubble go. I like that you can, if you want to have, if I want to refer to, let's say, a website, I can kind of put it as a little note and it'll pop up if I'm a moderator. Things I don't like about Clubhouse, you can only have 10 speakers at any one time. So if you want to, currently, and I'm just saying this is current, like they could have changed it from yesterday for all I know, but limited, right? I didn't know what the topic was that people were talking about in their space. So, and then how do I find topics? So this hasn't really been, even on Clubhouse, super hard to find topics, right? Like if I type in hospitality digital marketing, I can find people who have that in their profile. I can find clubs, but I can't see easily what time and what day is that room happening on. So that's why I always encourage people, hey, you set up your room, go amplify it on all your social media channels so I can easily tap on it and add it to my calendar, because as much as some people think I'm on Clubhouse all the time, I'm not. I am not on
oh, come on now. You've already started the first rehab group. Clubhouse. Clubhouse.
Sometimes I pop in and out. And the other thing is sometimes I get a notification by accident. I touch it, right? And I'm like, oh, darn it. Go in there. Yourself out.
I'll say one other thing I don't like about Clubhouse in addition to this is being on your phone. You can be in the middle of something, and as your phone rings, poof, you're gone. It just drives you bananas. It's like, even if you're on do not disturb, if something comes in, you're bumped out, whether you're the moderator or not,
Yeah, I think as I was talking about earlier, it also has a lot to do with the audiences, the demographics of the audience that are on Clubhouse. Because like as Ed was saying too, I as well, on Facebook, I've got Facebook friends. Not many of them are LinkedIn friends, and vice versa, right? It goes both ways on that. And when I joined Clubhouse, I had to first answer that question to myself of, is this going to be a social friends thing that I'm doing, or is this going to be more of a professional thing that I'm doing? And I opted for the more professional side of that. And I think that's consistent with a lot of the people that are on there.
I have a question. When somebody says, I invite you to be a moderator, what does that mean? Is it the same thing as being a speaker?
Okay, so there's a couple of different levels. There's co-host.
Oh, did she freeze? Steph, you froze.
Oh, we lost her.
Steph. Oh, we did lose her.
The secrets of
She didn't like your question, Adele. That's what happens on Clubhouse. You're just boom.
Hold on, let's pop her screen back on again. I don't know what happened.
Adele didn't, or Lauren didn't like her answer and he muted her.
No, I had nothing to do with it. I had nothing to do with it. Steph, sorry. I didn't turn anything off.
This happens quite frequently during the day. My office is downstairs, furthest away from the internet box, even with a repeater thing. It happens. Asking me the difference between the different people. So you can set up co-hosts. And what that means is that When you enter the room, you're automatically getting on stage, but the quote moderator still has to make you a moderator. And then a moderator has certain privileges. They can bring people up on stage. They can remove people from stage. They can kick out all the other moderators. Be very careful as to who you decide to have as a moderator. There have been times where people have been in rooms and they've made lots of people mods. What has happened is a mod didn't like what another mod said, kicked all the mods out, and took over the room. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen in our groups, because usually you give somebody mod status who, you know, you feel confident and comfortable with them.
Right.
And moderators can really help you out. So like if Lauren is the speaker and really, you know, asking questions and trying to guide the conversation and, you know, encouraging people to speak, then people are putting up their hand from the audience. You can have one of the other moderators, you know, check their profile to make sure they're not some weird troller, for example, and invite them up to the stage. I know we did have an experience. We had some people that I believe were kind of trollers, and Lauren handled them so well. I don't know if I could have been so nice to them. He was just like, tell us a little bit about yourself and, you know, what's your comment or question? They're like, I like your dog, to somebody's profile picture. And you're like, oh. So what I started doing was when I saw that all these people randomly came in with that person, and when they were kind of putting up their hand and you know, after a while, I just started not letting them come up on stage, kind of thing, because I knew that they were all the same, because they all had the same person that invited them in after a while. And if somebody doesn't have their microphone muted, it is the most irritating to hear somebody typing on a keyboard, right? So as a moderator, you can mute them. Talk, and they're like, oh, you have your mic, right? Because we muted them. And so that's kind of like the moderator. Anybody, oh, the other cool part, as soon as you go on stage, your whole network is alerted that you've gone on stage in this particular room. So as a moderator, if you see somebody really influential come into the audience, and that's why you have other mods looking, then you can see them and you can be like, I'm going to invite them up on stage, because now their network of how many ever people are being alerted that they went on stage in this room. Oh, maybe that should be of interest to me too. Because
Is that why I keep on getting all these?
Yeah, that's
sometimes. You
can change that. You know, you can change your frequency in your settings.
Mine is set to rare.
Yeah. Melissa commented that she really wasn't a fan that you can't click on links in the profile. So the only links that are clickable are Twitter and Instagram, right? But you can use that to your advantage. So for example, if you say, click the link in my bio, click while you're talking, you say, oh, you can get this link, go to Instagram and click on, you know, if you have link in bio on Instagram, or you're using Linktree, or if you're sending them to your website where you have a list of all your links. And then Judy, she does this really, really well. She puts that in there and you just click on her link in Instagram and it'll take you right to your, like this show, for example, right? So you don't have to give people some code or URL. You can just say, click on my Instagram bio and click on, you know, show 293 for this Friday, if that's the one we're on.
Yeah, it is. See?
Right? So there's tricks, and the way you find out about these tricks is you just go into other rooms and you learn. Now, I'm a fan of the smaller rooms because I feel like you can really get to connect with people. But if I wanted to learn about how to set up my Instagram store and be successful with it, guess what? I don't care if there's 1,000 people in the room, because I can DM the speaker, because that's their goal, is to increase the following, right? The one I do recommend is if you're going to follow someone on Instagram, I think it's kind of polite or courtesy to send a message and say, hey, this is Stephanie. I saw you in the Clubhouse room on Thursday. You know, with Lauren, you guys were talking about SEO or whatever it is. And I just found it really interesting, because when I see people following me, I'm like, who is this person?
It happens to me on LinkedIn a lot. Where in fact, I think it was on the show, Steph, when you ever said, hey, easiest way to follow the schedule, because I think it was the day that we lost it in the schedule. Like the show didn't show up in the scheduling. And it's like, And then you popped up and says, well, just follow Lauren's LinkedIn because he posts up there that, the show's coming, which I do. And I got 20 some odd people going, and they did the courtesy thing. It's like, hey, I'm with you on Clubhouse and I'm following you. And like, cool, boom. To me, that immediately qualified them under the criteria that I have for LinkedIn, which is business related or industry related. I will go connect with you if that is, if that's the case. So, you're right. Those little shortcuts. I use Shorby on Instagram. I actually should add my Clubhouse on there. Yeah, you just reminded me of that little to do.
So that's just a tip there.
No, it worked out well. So what other questions do we have for Steph? Because considering she's our go-to person for Clubhouse right now. So,
it's funny because I've just picked up little tips and tricks along the way, but there are people that are making this. Like, I went into one room and it was a choreographed show. All mods all had the same color background. So you could find the moderator really easily. And they had a whole production happening in the background where they would communicate to each other via Messenger or some tool, right? And then one person could say, and what they actually did was they would look through the audience and they would see people who they thought would have an interesting question. So even if you put up your hand, chances of getting on stage were slim. I kind of don't like that because I feel like inclusion, anybody who wants to come up, you don't know what they have to say. They could have a gem, right? And, you're hand picking. Now, I guess if you're going to do a Instagram audit, maybe you want to go check out their Instagram page because you want to have something to really audit, right? And you want to help promote somebody or something. So I can see that. But we
had some great shows. Remember that Gordon guy? I keep calling him Gordon, but remember he was totally unrelated to the industry, but he came into the dialogue and it was brilliant outside of the industry conversation that just because he raised his hand, we said, sure, come on in, but he had some great content. And we've had a lot of people like that in the room, actually.
Yeah, and I think it's really great because I think sometimes we're in our silos and we're only looking at hospitality marketers where there are things that are happening in other industries that you can take what they're doing and apply it to your industry. And that's why I sit in, I go to these SEO rooms, for example, or I'm going to tell you, there's this really cool tool. If anybody's interested, it's a mind blower. It's called Search Explorer, and Noah Lerner developed it over COVID, over the last 9 months. It's such an amazing tool, and he connected with a lot of people on Clubhouse, and that's not his goal to promote Search Explorer through Clubhouse. It just happened. And then he did a Zoom call, and I'm on the Zoom call with everybody, and it wasn't connected to Clubhouse, and I'm seeing all the Clubhouse people's names. And I get to see you live now. This is cool. And he talked about his product that he developed and invented, so to speak. And, it'll probably become a SaaS product, but really cool. So I'm on the inside learning about this really neat product that I really want to get for our hotel because it's going to make developing content and optimizing your website so much better. And, he's trying to democratize data to be able to give it to everyone kind of thing, right? So, of course, there's going to be a price to pay for the product because it wasn't his salary wasn't free for a year, but so cool. Blows my mind.
He gets to also get the beta testers involved because then he gets to get it debugged by people that are using it and then come back to him about things that he himself hadn't explored yet, which again, to your point about the rooms and stuff like this, I find the greatest value being outside the bubble. We had that earlier conversation today's show even. It's like we know each other well enough to know that we talk with and through and we understand people's perspectives together, but hearing people that have no direct purpose to the conversation but can contribute to it or interest in what you're saying. There's a lot of travel bloggers. Yeah, it's travel related, but it's not something that's directly related to what we're talking about for marketing, but they totally enjoyed our dialogue about what CRM was because it was a mystery that, all too often you get people that the worst question to ask is the one that they don't. And that is, I don't know what you just said. What is that? That's the worst thing that people do is they don't raise their hand going, I'm sorry, I may look silly by asking, but what is that? What did you just say? And sometimes that's the best question because a lot of people in the room go, oh, thank God somebody asked that question because I didn't even know what the heck they were talking about. And so they're learning about stuff that they've never been actually able to get involved with and understand it better. And it might be that missing piece to a puzzle is something that they never knew about. Like, oh my gosh, that makes sense now. That's what that means. And all of a sudden they have a whole different angle on it. So
Well,
yes, very much so.
or asking people who are outside the industry for ideas, right? Or different things that can apply. An example, and I've got to drop off in a second because I've got another call, but like in my, basically the boop this week in my newsletter, not to self-promote, but it's luxury travel advisors came up with a March Madness approach to the most Instagrammable hotels, right? And you go, oh my God, that's genius. I'm going to start with 64 and they're going to compete against each other. I mean, that's a long string of engagement to go start doing things, right? Now, I don't think they took the approach where they're getting those hotels to advertise and promote and things like that, where all of a sudden you could see this really kind of bastardized to a whole paid thing. But those sorts of things are really clever. I'm willing to bet they got that somehow cross-fertilized from some basketball conversation, right? Went, wait a second, I can go do this with that.
Over a beer.
Yeah, over a beer. And again, you engage with more people outside of your own filter bubble, as we were kind of saying at the beginning of the conversation. All of a sudden, some really good ideas come up. So anyway, great stuff, Stephanie. Lauren, you should definitely put the link to the Search Explorer in the comments, or if
I didn't
Stephanie
even
has.
pull it up. Actually, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Stephanie. If you want to throw it in, that'd be great.
I don't think they did a webinar the other day, but I don't think it's live yet.
Oh, it's the real insiders. So you got to be on Clubhouse to find out about this sort of thing. Yeah, otherwise, like us Android people out in the wilderness, I've got to go hunt a squirrel and cook it up right now. So I've got to go. So, I got a bow and arrow. That's all I can do for food. I don't know.
Yeah, sign up and connect with Lauren or myself. And when it comes out, let me know and I will send you the information. So now that's a lead magnet for me. I don't know.
I've been spending about the last 5 or 6 years to reduce the number of links to Lauren, as the rest of the people on the show have been doing. But maybe I'll keep it on there for a while.
Oh, come on, keep it on, Robert. One last link.
Okay, I got to.
I was gonna say bye.
I got to drop. I'm 2 minutes late. Bye.
Bye.
Go ahead, Steph.
But Lauren, I was going to say, let me ask Noah if he wants to be on one of our Clubhouse rooms on the SEO, so he can talk about this tool that is going to be coming out to use. I mean, it was mind blowing, and actually, I shouldn't talk it up that much because then you'll be disappointed if it's not blowing your mind.
No.
Movies. If you hear everybody loves that movie, you're like, hey, I was okay. But if you just go to the movie and you have no idea what it's about, it's like, wow, that was an amazing movie.
And the same thing goes, Adele and Dean, to this as well. We make the club for it to be under a generalized umbrella, knowing that this is going to evolve and morph into different things. The size, I mean, as we talked about earlier, Stefan, I think you were listening in on at the time, is that, there's 2 million people weekly on this, and there's 10 million total signups or something. But it starts getting to 100 million and so forth, it's going to get into different metrics of things. And I think by default, some of the hospitality clubs are simply because they were the first clubs. That's what people were magneted to, because it was like option 1 or option 2. Hospitality professionals or hospitality is more. Okay, I'll take that one, And now that we begin to be able to diversify some of our stuff, everyone, please do it under the club if you think it's applicable. Anything you want to build for a room, and also too, if you need to be, Steph and things. If being an administrator of it helps, I don't know of any difference between being the administrator of the club versus being able to make a room in the club. Maybe differently, Steph. I don't know there's really anything that being an administrator does differently other than influencing what you name the club, I guess, or making the rules, or editing the club itself. But it doesn't limit the fact that you can make rooms in the club.
Yeah, members can make rooms in the club if the club makes the room open.
Yes, and I did, yeah.
Oh, I actually have to bounce out too. My apologies. I have.
No, you're good.
But it's a pleasure speaking with all of you, and I'm really excited to see you on Monday on Clubhouse, where we're talking about SEO.
SEO, it's gonna be an SEO day. Right, hey, Steph, thanks for making it over on this one. Thank you. Thanks for popping in.
Thanks so much. Okay, bye.
Bye, Steph.
Bye.
So we went and made Clubhouse our conversation today. Oh, it was pretty cool.
How'd that happen? Yeah.
I do not know. I mean, well, actually, it was nice to Steph coming in. We probably kept the conversation going because of that. Steph's still trying to figure the off button. Oh, just close the browser. Yeah, just close the browser.
I was starting
Let's
to
hit the stop button up on the top corner. Yeah, don't touch the stop button in the top corner. Oh man, I know that we're all. Go ahead, Dean. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, and then there were 3.
Then there was 3. You know, it's funny. We
can't
start.
believe how much time it took of my week, and I kept saying, you know, is this the best use of my time? Don't I have a to-do list that's like a mile long? And I also, like you said, I can't do 2 things at the same time. I can't both be listening. And, you know, I could be doing the laundry, but I can't actually work.
I have that with, you know, I always ask this to people, is like, do you listen to music when you work? My wife is one of the ones that can listen to music and work. I can't listen to music and work because to me, music is, I'm into music. I listen to music when music's on. And then if I'm working, and that's my focus. I'm with you. I can multitask. And I have tried to put things like Clubhouse and or podcasts behind if I'm trying to do general, what I call grunt work. Like I'm just looking and moving and shifting, copy, pasting, create way. And it's not really, doesn't take such focus. But if I'm doing research and or really strategic stuff, I got to do that. I can't have that on the side. That said, Clubhouse, if I'm sitting sipping coffee, I'll pop it on and see if there's rooms. I have learned the etiquettes of, obviously, you know, like the mute things and stuff like that, and not saying 5 minutes of what you do, but also when I first started doing the rooms, I started inviting everybody that popped in to be a speaker, and it was like, I don't understand why no one wants to come up and talk. It was because really a lot of people were there just really to listen.
They want to be
until they hear something. Yeah. Until they hear something that says, I want to contribute or ask a question, inviting them to be a speaker doesn't do much. And I think some example that Steph gave about it, some organized room, I think that's kind of toxic to this platform because I see people making jingles and or entry, you know, pre-roll, like, and welcome to our room of the day of such and such, you know. I see that, and I think in a strange way, it kind of would take away for the engagement thing, because you immediately be intimidated, like, okay, am I, you know, what am I contributing or listening to? That's for podcasts. I think that podcasts do that well. I don't think there's a reason, you know, that you have to venture off it. But this is more of a, hey, we're talking about this. Come talk to us, or be a part of it, or listen in, whatever. It's more open dialogue. So, what do you guys think? I mean, you're both on it.
Yeah, you know, I can see, especially based on what Stuart said and what Ed said, that they found their time to be well spent and valuable, having invested some time in it. I think I'm just probably in the too early stages where I'm really, you know, shouldn't I be doing my to-do list? You know, I have, you know, I need to prepare a course. I need to make an online course, and I need time to focus my brain on that. And I, you know, the same thing is true about the music. I cannot do it because I will have choreography happening in my brain. And I can't.
Yeah. But I think also, and this is a true, and please take it as a compliment, both of you could so correct so many malfunctioning conversations that I listen to. Honestly, I listen to a tremendous amount of rooms that are talking about reputation and what to do. And not that they're wrong, but they're very granular of like, well, this is how we respond. And they're very about doing those things, but they're missing the larger picture that you bring to it, Adele, the cultural variations, the cultural impact, the mindset, the things that really are what you do. And I think I mentioned this in our last live show when we were talking about TripAdvisor Plus and all that. It's not the vehicle you're driving. It's the fact that you're an excellent driver. You know, you create those things based on whatever it is. TripAdvisor or Expedia reviews or stuff are just the vehicle of expression that it's put on, and you have certain ways of doing that. That's fine. But your real impact is the cultural change that it's created in the staff and teams, is how I see it. And Dean, the same with you when you do with your metasearch. It's not about the platform. It's not about the metrics of bid management and so forth. It is the value proposition the channel represents in combination with your strategies. And it's the larger picture. That isn't in Clubhouse conversations I've been participating in. everything of the opposite. It's the granularity of, well, this is your bid management of what metasearch is, and it should only be used for this and this. And these absolute discussions and absolute strategies are absolutely bullshit, stuffy. Yeah, I'm sure they apply applicably in certain circumstances, but making it as this is my recommendation if you're listening to me about metasearch is a very biased statement. And often it's usually tied to, and by the way, the platform I use is the where I work. It's this and it's that. I think you all could really do well with not that you don't listen to them, but just start something up that talks about it. I know I told you about this with podcasts too, but it's like, y'all have some crazy insights on stuff that just isn't getting in the market as well as it is right now on this kind of platform anyway. So.
And as we've been saying with Clubhouse, that is the challenge too, of where is the balance? And I think a lot of people are still finding that. What's that balance? Because yeah, I could spend an entire day on Clubhouse easily. It can be a time suck, and I can multitask to a certain degree on it, and that's the advantage it has. But as Stuart was saying too, Ed would occasionally call him out when he wasn't fully paying attention. You're kind of half paying attention, right? You're listening to it in the background. But finding those, and that's why you're so too. I usually am able to join on certain days, but there's ones that I can't join in. And as Tim was saying earlier, I kind of look for the ones where can I contribute to that. But you raise a good point that the ones that I can't contribute to are ones that I could learn from, right? And so there's a value proposition in there for it. It's just finding that balance. What is right for you? And I don't think there's one answer to that. It's still in an exploratory stage.
Most agrees with us on the music versus working thing completely, which I figured, yeah, all super brilliant people can't do music and work because it's all focus. But I think to your point in something, one is only recently, and I say this from just this past week, I stopped putting the condition of whether I want to step up and talk or can I add to it or whatever. I really just let off, said, what the heck? What's going on? What's interesting? Just let's throw a dart. See, and I'm keeping it still hospitality-esque, like what are other people saying? But I've stopped making the predication of if I go in, I'm going to want to be a participant. I'm really now just looking at what rooms do I want to go in and see what they're talking about. Now, to heck to the top, and I'll listen to some rooms like that's bullshit. I mean, but I'm not joining it to do that. I'm not going in to do contra opinion or anything else. I'm just listening to a guy I do not agree. It's like listening to a radio show. It's like, yeah, that's crap. But there are times where I also will go, you know what? I think I got something I want to add. And at that point, I'll put the buds in and I'll do something. Most of the time, I'll just pop it on the phone just to put in the background. It's a balance of that. Yeah. It's fitting it. You don't want to miss out because it isn't being recorded and stuff.
Though it's also a little, would seem a little awkward to say, well, you should listen to me because I actually have done this. I'm not just somebody who's read a few articles on it and I have a theory about what works in terms of getting great reviews. I know how to get the #1 hotel in the world kind of reviews. And it just doesn't seem like an appropriate place to
it comes out though. I'll give you credit for other things. Like we're so used to, hi, here's my business card. This is who I am, what I've done. We're used to the elevator pitch. Heck's the term, elevator pitch. I have to tell you, validating who I am before I start talking. A lot of times I'm finding in these rooms, okay, and just like you're at a conference, when you raise your hand, you stand up and you ask a question. You don't have the chance to say, this is why I'm qualified to ask this question. You just get to ask the question. The rooms are like that, where it's like, look, I'm going to start contributing. The real slam down, and I have thoroughly enjoyed when this has happened, when somebody tries to out pedigree you. Well, I've been doing this for 20 years. Good lay. That's congratulations. Half as long as I've done it. And looking at what you said you've done, I've done 3 times as many hotels as you. Do you want to keep talking like this, or do you want to get to the point we were talking about? And I've had those things happen where it's not been as adversarial, but the coup de grace of, yeah, I'm here for a reason, makes its point very succinctly when you qualify who you are, or better yet, and this is the real one that makes you feel good, when somebody in the audience that's already on stage going, you do know that's Lauren, right? You might want to look at his thing first before you start talking about how he doesn't know about something. And you're funny going, well, I didn't plan that, but boy, that felt good, So that will happen. I will guarantee you walk in a room, and if you disagree with or give an opinion that the other person challenges you on, you're slammed down. You got the mic drop pedigree. You have the Really? So okay. Let's swap notes just for a second. Have you ever had the #1 hotel in the world? No? No, then sit back down. I'd say it more ruder, but you know what I mean. It's just so you don't. I honestly, if that's holding back in the dialogue of like, hey, do I have to walk in always and say, look who I am? No, I've let that go earlier too. It's like, yeah, I'm there.
Yeah, and maybe people also, when they hear something said, sometimes they can say that rings true. Even without saying what I've accomplished, or in what my teams have accomplished, really.
Mm-hmm.
So hey, I know we've been on Clubhouse the whole time here, so certainly if we got more to talk about, I'm open to that. But there's another topic I want to make sure we get to today.
All yours.
And that was about, so we saw the Sonesta buying Red Lion hotels. And it brings up a conversation, or two conversations, one that I want to get to with that. One, by the way, Red Lion, if we can remember back 20 years ago, there was a day when Red Lion was the top of the top list of luxury hotels, right? And that was kind of their name and their namesake a little bit. You could put Howard Johnson in that category too. Howard Johnson, you remember when they were the way up here of business?
Everybody had their day. Yeah, everybody had their day.
Right? And Red Lion, well, that hotel group in general, they actually bought Knights Inns from Wyndham a couple of years ago, which is a way down here category brand of hotel. So it's mixing the names, mixing the breeds. Does it get you a more diverse portfolio, or does it pollute your portfolio? Is the first part of that question. And then the second part of that question, and in Robert's articles, he had one of these, but brands versus independents, and where does that go with the brand independent argument? And he showed some stats about what was happening in terms of performance of brands versus independents. So I just kind of want to put those out there for discussion in our last 15 minutes here.
Yeah. Adele, if you have it, go right ahead, ladies.
Yeah, well, I mean, Sonesta does have different levels of brands that they're introducing, and I hope that regardless of the level of hotel, that their core values are going to come shining through, for all of them. I want them to call me to help them do that, because I think that that's quite a lot to take on, like 300 hotels or whatever it is up to at this point. But I would love to see their lower star value hotels go right to the top of guest satisfaction, with a different perspective maybe than the other brands have gone. I talked about it last week. I had a situation where I had ad set by brand, failure on distribution didn't happen, that they did not have the lowest rate on their website. Failure in distribution, call the hotel, failure of empowerment. The person didn't have the power to take care of me, that she doesn't even know about it. She doesn't know about the brand matching or anything. And then she sends me to reservations where I had a bad experience, and I don't blame the person who picked up the phone and gave me a bad experience, because somebody hired that person and didn't train them to actually be listening to me and answering my questions and paying attention to even what dates I was saying. Even when I said, no, those aren't the right dates, these are the right dates. Okay, but back to my script. Well, can you tell me what dates I'm staying? Can you confirm that you've got? Yes, you're coming on Sunday. No, I said I'm coming on Saturday. And then when you said Sunday, I said, no, I'm not coming on Sunday. I'm standing on Saturday. It doesn't matter. The thing is that what the brand does tarnishes the reputation of the individual hotel or lifts it up. And just that miscommunication, just knowing that kind of thing happens, makes me always want to be an independent hotel, because I just want to be able to control the experience, and I'm delivering the very best to my guests every day, and not having something that I can't manage muck it up a little bit, or even tell me that I can't have my front desk take care of a guest who says, hi, I saw a lower rate on an OTA. Here's the screenshot. Can you match it? Because they're trying to do you a favor. It's just, there's just something that's just not comfortable there. If you know how to run a hotel. If you don't know how to run a hotel, then you need the brand to tell you how to do it.
Well, I'm going to take a Tim Peter-esque attitude towards this. First off, I like to make the analogy. I consider brands like playing cards. You only keep the cards that are useful, and you discard all the stuff that you're not creating a strategy for. Play bridge anytime. You're not going to keep a handful of what you can't put together to make most effective to be a winning hand. Play pinochle. You get 55,000 cards. With that, I'd also say that brand has a value to a point, and then it needs to stop. And unfortunately, brand inherently continues on and begins to deteriorate its value proposition. Brand from a marketing perspective is awareness and capability of dissemination of value of, hey, if from a marketing point of view, a mothership perspective, we have all these locations that if you're going here, we have something. If you're going here, you have something. If you went there, you get a value for being there. Brand's good for that awareness. Inherently, brand is also homogeny, consistency. And going back to your Hojo's example, when I go there with the orange roof and the blue thing, the food's going to be good in the restaurant. The room's going to be a certain way. That's McDonald's product. That brand's homogeny is good. That's also its beginning of demise because it doesn't fit everywhere, although it's trying to be shoehorned in. If I go to Portland, I'm still going to get the orange roof and the blue colors, and I'm going to get those pancakes. Well, there's better pancakes in Portland, and you're not going to be that really cool place that has pancakes where someplace else, maybe the pancakes are, it's the best at your hotel, whatever it is. I'm making a silly example, but that it doesn't fit being homogeneous everywhere. At a certain level, brand has to allow for the fluidity of its location, the fluidity of the uniqueness of the property, the ability for the property to excel in its own value proposition without being forced into the brand mold. Brand contributes, but brand translates it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So let's think about that and carry that on to the next part of that, though. So as we've got the COVID travelers now, and people are starting to get back into traveling, but there's a little apprehension there yet, right? We're still a little bit nervous, and so we're thinking about, okay, I'm going to, I don't know, pick your favorite city, and where do I stay? Okay, I know that my Hampton Inn is a safe choice, and that comfort factor. And in Robert's article and here I'll put this into the chat menu as we're talking. There's some pie charts in there that show the amount of business that the brands have dominated from 2010 to 2020. And it's just an amazing amount. And I think a lot of that comes from that safety factor. Still shows I'm Tim Peter. That's not Tim posting, that's actually me. His evil twin. And but so we see that again, that comfort factor, that safety factor, that boy, I'd sure love to try that hotel, but you know what? I know this one's going to be okay, and I'm going to take that because it's a safety factor for me.
Yeah, but I also point out the fact that because of mergers and consolidations, you're going to get a skewed number on the variations of brand that are being available to market compared to historically before. There's just now we know that we've, like Marriott, they inherited a whole mess of brand values, and they are very asimilar to the same brands that they had, hence because they were competing before. Now they're frenemies now, but they still exist because from a publicly traded company's perspective, you can't, as Tim has pointed out many times, diminish inventory. That's no in Wall Street land. You can't say I'm going to make this smaller, even if you're saying from the long haul perspective, by consolidation, we create clarity. Nobody's buying that. They're into what's my stock doing today and what am I going to get as return today. And so it's counterproductive to that end, which kind of lends it to what I'm saying is that brand value is strong to the level of its proposition to where it begins to deteriorate the value of what the property itself has. There has been no magic combination that has come out of all of this. We've watched companies poo-poo on Wall Street and go for their brand consolidations and say, wait until we get to where we're doing this for, and then you'll appreciate us restructuring what we're doing. And they fought it, and some people have lost their jobs over it, and other people have been able to get to that point where they proved themselves right. Very few have even tried that path. IHG is probably the poster child of doing it wrong. They let their brand deterioration go down to keep inventory availability. They allowed their brand standards to fall to the point where there was brand ambiguity. They didn't know what to expect when we went to Holiday Inn, whether it was 10-year-old of FF&E or whether it was current FF&E, because there was no enforcement of their FF&E policies, and so they've had to learn the hard way that you do have to make these things happen. And then you have other companies that have pushed through. Wyndham was one of the ones that pushed through and said, we're going to do it this way, and we're going to create centric branding and so forth. So I think going to your brand discussion for the numbers you showed with that in his article is that, hey, look, brand is always going to have a very strong impact on financial capabilities of hotels.
Right.
What I do think from a COVID perspective is that has been put into question based on how banks have reacted to keeping their asset values intact. They are basically giving hotels over for pennies on the dollar to companies that are willing to take on the debt of the hotel at a fraction of the cost value at a price that the bank says can maintain the asset value. And now the first thing that some of these ownerships are doing is saying, there seems to be a lot of the same flag in this market for this hotel. We're not going to be that brand anymore. We don't need to finance ourselves. We don't need to create financial stability for having a brand connected to us. We're going to do what's best for this hotel's location, this hotel's product and market. And I think you're going to see a lot of challenges to how brands have to renegotiate their brand relationship with somebody where it's not a 25-year deal. It might be a 15-year deal or a 10-year deal. And there might be latitude on exactly which brands get to survive. And I think also brands, not to go off on these old diatribes, but I think brands, this is a great chance for them to purge a lot of deadwood branding products legitimately. Like, hey, it's not us, it's the owners. Hey, don't blame us, Wall Street. These owners picked up these hotels and that's their call, not ours. I don't know. I think there's positives in some ways by the culling of the herd in some ways.
Well, yeah, and that's where too that question of where do you dilute the brand when you have too many brands in there? And the Marriott Starwood merger is a great example of that, right? Where you ended up with 25 different brands between
31.
Yeah, that's insane, right? And so at what point does Sonesta? I applaud Sonesta for what they've been doing. They've been very aggressive. They've been out there eating up pieces and parts that were left over and left laying around, and they took advantage of the situation. And more power to them. But at what point do you start bringing on too diverse of a portfolio where, hey, I'm trying to be a luxury hotel group or a mid-scale hotel group, but I've got these little ankle biters over here that are coming along the way.
Mm-hmm. I think Sonesta is best, going to my card analogy, and is find the brand that is the most marketable for the product variations you have, and that's what you have. Like, not everybody can be a Sonesta hotel, but
or Royal Sonesta.
Yeah, but by the same token, be the centricity of it. And I say that because I have a big brand client that, they're talking about literally the centralization versus decentralization. How much latitude do you allow and how much do you try to control? So middle of these conversations, and it's like, what you can sell, you should sell. Like, if we are this, then this is who we are. By that being said, all these brands you have bought up and people's familiarity with that brand for what they used it for in times past should be drawn to whatever it is you're now calling it. People are, as we know, brand agnostic. To them, if you want to call it the Peter Piper brand, that's fine, as long as it's everything I want it to be, where I want it to be, when I want it, at the price I want. Okay, and you're going to acknowledge that I did that. So be those things and cull it down, because nobody really. I got to go back to an old show we did years ago. Robert read the mission statements of, I think, 8 different brands at the time. We got them all wrong. We didn't understand, even from the verbiage of the brand of itself, understood which brand it was talking about.
Yeah.
An eclectic gathering of open space and comfortable in space, and you're like, I have no idea who that is. Yeah. So it's that brand a lack of identity, and then the fracturing that we all lived through of we're looking for the metrosexual urban male traveler in, so we're going to make this brand for it. Okay. And it's one of 12 flavors of the same thing. And we also know that they did brands because they could not violate their brand contracts with a brand they had in market. So they had to create their new brand to be in the market because they want to sell more hotel rooms in that market. So.
And by the way, I just realized I missed a terrible opportunity this entire show that I could have been putting stuff in the chat thing as Tim Peter and just put a whole bunch of crap in my hand.
Tim Peter says, Tim Peter says, Tim Peter says. I didn't realize I had duplicated your links. My apologies.
Well, I definitely will say that, you were speaking before that there is a certain comfort level that you're going to get a certain whatever if you go with a certain brand.
Yeah.
But I don't need that comfort level because I have reviews, and I think hearing from 5,000 people how that hotel in that location with that general manager is performing in terms of the guest experience, and that gives me far more comfort than any sign out front, because I've seen companies that have had great experiences and medium experiences and poor experiences all with the same flag.
Yeah.
I really liked listening to Carlos Flores, I think he's the CEO and president of Sinesta, something like that. And he seems really genuinely interested in the culture and the continuous improvement and everything like that. I really liked where his mind and his heart were at. I really am hoping for them that they can do something better, you know.
I agree with you. I do have hope for Sinesta because, let's face it, it's not Marriott, it's not Hilton, it's not cheap. It's kind of the same way going back to the Clubhouse thing. It's not Facebook, it's not Twitter. That's kind of almost the automatic allure. Having somebody like Sinesta come in and take the advantage, and I don't mean that in a negative way at all, opportunity, take advantage of the opportunity to gather more resources, more inventory, because they operated so well that they had the resources to do that with to begin with, is a testament to saying, I want them to be good at it. I don't want them, and I don't want them to pattern themselves after the people they're competing against, mainly the other brands at this point, to do what they did. Don't think because that's how it's always been done that it has to be that way. And that's the worry I have for them, is they're going to say, oh, well, now we're at this size, we're going to do what a company this size has historically done. It's like, don't do that. Do something unique to the fact that you are in this role now that you can make these types of decisions for it. So
I was listening to Anthony Mulcahy at some point, and he was quoting somebody else. I don't remember I think it was somebody from Dan Hotels. I'm not really sure. And he quoted that person saying, every large hotel can be run like a boutique hotel if you care about all your guests and all the details. And the same is true if you have a big company. If you coach the coaches and let them coach their coaches, everybody will be rowing in the same direction towards the same vision.
I'll flip that coin over and say any small boutique hotel can be as powerful as a huge resort if they care about how they market themselves as well. Because I've had plenty of examples of mice that roared and they dominate. I have little hotels that literally big hotels look at patterning their rates after, because they're so successful with what they did, that the big hotels going, well, why are they kicking our butt? And they're a tenth of what our size is. We should be telling them what our rate should be in market. Instead, we're waiting to see what they do. It's like, yeah, because they're doing it better than you are doing it. But I don't want to kill everybody on this, but we are well over 2 hours. Well, not well over, but we're over 2 hours. What a surprise. And we are the last of our. We had some great people come in today. Thank you, including you all. It was fun conversation as always with it. I guess we should always disclaim ourselves that this is, we do this every Friday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern U.S. time. We also do the Clubhouse every Monday through Thursday at noon for those who are on it. We do have podcasts, but I'm going to let all of us speak to that end. Miss Adele, please go first. People want to know who you are, where to find you, and what is it you do.
Visit me at adelegutman.com, and you will see that I love to talk about reputation and how to get great reviews, and I know how to do it at multiple hotels, multiple countries, multiple general managers and directors of sales and marketing, but always the same level of success. And I know that this system can be replicated by any service business. Any hotel, large, small, chain, not chain, doesn't matter. You already have what it takes to do it. And if you need a little guidance as to how to do it, I am so happy to help. The Hospitality Reputation Marketing Podcast is now available on my favorite app, Audible. Whoa, I'm super excited about that because before it was just Apple Podcasts and
Google,
Spotify, etc. And so, yeah, and you can also find on my website. So
Cool.
come visit me.
Mr. Tim Peter, aka Dean Schmidt.
You can find me at Tim Peter. No, you can find me at
TimPeter.com.
Marketing.com. Dean at either one of those gets you to my email address. And of course, we do the educational content for MetaSearch. And then the marketing for MetaSearch as well. You know, something interesting happened last week. We talked about it a little bit, haven't talked about it today, but Google's free organic listings. Wow, there's a lot to be talked about with those. And actually, those are perfect for the audience segment that I speak to, and that is the small hotel, you know, that 10-room bed and breakfast in Lincoln, Nebraska that needs to get a point of sale on Meta. Boy, it's easier now than ever, and there's an opportunity to take advantage of that. I will be resurrecting the Heavy Meta podcast, by the way, because now we have some new content to add to that with TripAdvisor Plus and Google's free organic. By the way, Google's free organic isn't free. We should talk about that more sometime. But there's more that goes into that. And if you'd like to know more, get in touch with me.
Cool. Let me do a grocery list of people that were with us earlier that we didn't give them the chance to also express where they came from. Mr. Edward St. Anges from Flip.to. We also have Miss Tammy Carlisle, who was from Milestone Internet.com. We have Mr. Robert Cole with Rockcheetah, rockcheetah.com, who also provided our curated list that we only touched on a little bit today, which you can sign up for yourself at bit.ly/rockcheetah, all lowercase, no space. We also have Mr. Tim Peter with Tim Peter and Associates, although we seem to have a ghost of him here as well. And also Mr. Stuart Butler from Fuel Travel. And Stephanie Milo, who I'm sorry to say, because I've only dealt with her mostly on Clubhouse, I couldn't tell you exactly.
Evans Hotels.
What's that one?
Evans Hotel Group.
Thank you. Didn't catch that, but thank you. I'm glad you did.
Great group of, I'll give them kudos. Great group of about 5 independent hotels. Most of them are in California, if I remember correctly. Nature destinations, and
yes, that's true.
She's actually a contact that I met through Clubhouse.
See, yeah, and she really is, and as you can tell by her conversation today, she's very in tune with a lot of cool stuff. I hope she gets to join us on the show again as times go forward with that. Thank you, Melissa. Thanks for being into the Peanut Gallery today, as was a variety of people that have come in and out. Thank you for all of that. For everyone to listen back to this show and all previous 292 prior to it, you can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. Of course, we have the podcast Hospitality Marketing, which we'll be doing a quick recap of this show, as well as content that we don't get to cover on the show, really tools and techniques kind of stuff that I like focusing in on. And also other podcasts that we work with that wasn't represented today. Holly Zoba with Influencer Marketing. She does the Hospitality Sales Podcast. Miss Lily Mockerman, who does the Hospitality Revenue Management Podcast. Again, great podcast as well. I have to roll out the new revenue management one for Lily, or her media editor, Julie, will hurt me. But great podcast for all of that as well. I do want to be mindful of the fact that Field Travel also has multiple award-winning podcast, Field Travel. Melissa and everyone's over here, so I would be remiss not pointing out the very cool content that they're consistently very usable content. So thank you all for that. With that in mind, Clubhouse Monday will be SEO, and that's noon. Look for Hospitality Marketing Club, and you'll see the room underneath that. And then we're open for context. I think we're Wednesday, Thursday, we're still looking for topics, so we'll go from there. All right. Thank you all very much for the time and all the cool dialogue. And we will see everyone next Friday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, US. Bye, everybody.